In late October, the ice struck with renewed force, opening up planks on the starboard side. Water flooded the hold. All hands manned the pumps for 3 days and nights. Sounds struck Frank Hurley.
The ship groans and quivers, windows splinter, while the deck timbers gape and twist. Amid these profound and overwhelming forces, we are the absolute embodiment of helpless futility.
On October the 27th, 1915, 10 months after their imprisonment in the ice, Shackleton gave the order to abandon ship. Seaman Howe recalled,
Shackleton sent Frank Wilde along forward to our quarters, who explained to us that it was a case of get out. Previously, Sir Ernest had probably seen the red light, and sledges were packed with as much stores as possible.
It was especially unexpected and unwelcome for the ship's crew.
You've got to remember that the sailor is a sailor, and that's his ship, his home. And once he's off that ship, he's at a loss. The adventurers of the expedition, the people that expected to stay and knew what they were up against, like Tom Crean and Worsley, Shackleton himself, Wilde, they adapted a little bit easier. Although it was still tough.
They'd been reduced to a fraction of their original provisions, and 3 of the ship's 4 lifeboats. It was 15 degrees below, minus 27 degrees Celsius. Tents and clothing had been salvaged. Extra sleeping bags were improvised from woolen blankets. There were not enough fur sleeping bags to go round. Shackleton made them draw lots. William Bakewell, a sailor from America, recalled the results being fixed.
There was some crooked work in the drawing, as Sir Ernest, Mr. Wilde, Captain Worsley, and some of the other officers all drew wool bags. The fine warm fur bags went to the men under them.
In the chill morning, Shackleton gathered the company to outline his plan. Dr. Matlin recorded,
As always with him, what had happened had happened. Without emotion, melodrama, or excitement, he said, "Ship and stores have gone, so now we'll go home."
Shackleton's calm front concealed the turmoil of a night spent pacing the ice alone.
The thoughts that came to me in the darkness were not cheerful. The task now was to secure the safety of the party, and to that I must apply every bit of knowledge that experience of the Antarctic had given me.
There is nothing that can crush a man as to see his dreams crumble to the dust. But on the other hand, he realized if the one goal had disappeared, we'll have another one. And so, if I can't cross the continent, I'm going to bring all my men back alive. Because you mustn't forget that polar exploration was littered with dead bodies. This almost fanatic, well, it was a fanatic desire to bring his men back alive. This then became the driving force. It was the only thing he cared about. That change from aiming to attain what you had set out to extricating yourself from defeat is a strain that has broken many a man. It did not break Shackleton.
Shackleton's first impulse was to march to the nearest land, nearly 400 miles to the west. The men were allowed 2 pounds of personal possessions each. with few exceptions. Hussey was allowed to keep his banjo, which Shackleton called vital mental medicine. But there could be no extra mouths to feed. On Shackleton's orders, 3 puppies and Mrs. Chippy were shot.
I feel sure that it is the right thing to attempt a march. If we can make 5 or 7 miles a day, our chance of reaching safety will be greatly increased. It will be much better for the men to feel they are on their way to land than to sit down and wait.
But after 3 days of hard slog, they were still within sight of the ship. The march to land had proved futile. Now they could only watch and wait. The men scavenged supplies from the collapsing ship. They scoured her broken deck, retrieving what they could, and hauled it back to camp. Frank Hurley conducted a salvage operation of his own in his submerged darkroom.
During the day, I hacked through the thick walls of the refrigerator to retrieve the negatives stored therein. They were located beneath 4 feet of mushy ice, and by stripping to the waist and diving under, I hauled them out.
Together, he and Shackleton selected 120 negatives and sealed them in tin canisters. Shackleton made Hurley destroy the remaining 400, lest the photographer was tempted to recover them later. Hurley kept only a pocket camera and 3 rolls of film. On November the 21st, crushed, the Endurance sank beneath the ice forever. Seaman Howe recalled,
And Shackleton shouted, "Hurry up, men! The ship is about to leave us." And she took one final plunge. The noise was terrific, as the engine broke away from the bed and fell into the lower portion of the ship. It was underwater.
Shackleton recorded simply,
At 5 p.m. she went down. I cannot write about it.
The disappearance of the ship struck the sailors hardest.
Once the ship had gone, so my grandfather, I know, felt not at ease on the ice. It was a new thing. I mean, he'd seen snow as a kid, but never set foot on an iceberg like that. So it was a new ball game, so to speak. In their minds was, like any human being, I think, are we going to get out alive?
The drifting pack ice had carried the men 1,300 miles since they were trapped. Now they hoped the same drift would bring them to land. If not, they would be carried out to the open sea. Hurley summed up their predicament.
It is beyond conception even to us that we are dwelling on a colossal ice raft, with but 5 feet of frozen water separating us from 2,000 fathoms of ocean, and drifting along under the caprices of wind and tides to heaven knows where.